But I'm here with my friend Seth Katz from the UK. Seth and I run a men's group together. We're both coaches. We both help people with relationships, among other things. And Seth, how did you get into this type of work?
Well, I got into this work really from my own journey. My journey started from my suffered child abuse
Mm-hmm.
when I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And then in terms of trying to get myself back on track, the actual healing process, coming into contact with therapists, coaches, reading books and things like that. This is one of the things that actually made me look at relationships and kind of got me involved in coaching and helping people, really, because I guess when you start this journey, you start to talk to people, and then there's a lot of connection. There's a lot of people who have suffered or more have suffered trauma, child abuse, physical abuse, whatever type of abuse that kind of affects them now. And they don't really understand how to acknowledge it. Some people don't know what it is. And so I decided to try to help people to understand more the whys
Mm-hmm.
and the hows. And then this is where I'm at now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some key experiences that really inspired you to get into this type of work? And could you talk about, like, how you got involved in self-love after abuse TLC, and also with the Living Well, which is how we met?
Sure. So, well, my go back to about the year 2000. I was watching a program on men who have been abused sexually as children,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wasn't really meant to be watching it that day, but I decided to watch it because it was something that came on in the morning. So I was actually getting ready to go to work.
Right.
So I was running a bit late, and I said, "Oh, let me watch this program." And I ended up staying, watching the program, and listening to these men. There was also a few women on there as well, and their experiences and how it played out in their lives. So
Mm-hmm.
some said they had the addictions to alcohol, to
Right.
sex, to drugs, like PTSD. I never heard the word PTSD before. I only thought that people from the war could get PTSD.
Right. That's a common misconception.
Exactly. And then I sat and I actually cried. I cried for
Wow.
about half an hour because I said to my current partner, to my partner at that time, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wow, this is something that's happened to me. But
Right.
I never told her what had happened to me. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, wow. So she said, well, you need to get help. But if you think about it, the year 2000, the internet was in its infancy.
Right.
There was no such thing as Facebook, no such thing as the social media presence and YouTube presence as what it is now. So,
And people weren't sharing as much, which is both a good and a bad thing in general. But if you're a man and you feel so alone with this, I imagine that's a very lonely and discomforting feeling.
exactly. And then that kind of started my journey. I took the whole week off work, the rest of the week off work,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember it vaguely. I remember it clearly, sorry. It was a Monday and it was like a cloudy day. And I said I never went into work for the whole week because I was
Wow.
so shaken up by it. Then I went to my local police station, pressed charges, or tried to put charges. Told my mum, told my family, told certain family members, and that was then the start of me trying to find resources or people in terms who could help me. And then there wasn't much. It was like you either went to a place in London called like Harley Street, where you had a therapist, and
Mm.
it's quite expensive. So
Right.
there wasn't any kind of space or place for that. So
Was
then
it
I
not covered by the health services at that time, therapy?
not really like mental health isn't there wasn't but like when you spoke about mental health in the year 2000 in the year 2000, people would say you're mad, you're crazy.
Right.
Like they don't address it as feeling depressed or under the weather or kind of overwhelmed, or they never associated mental health with what it is now. So if I said I'm feeling depressed, someone will say, "I will go and take some pills, go to the doctor." And I
Right.
don't think there was the kind of services or kind of attention that it has now.
Right.
So my journey then culminated with me coming into contact with people who had also like suffered child abuse and kind of relationship issues, and kind of just talking about the how and what and why and when. And then it kind of petered out really after maybe about a year or two, because I couldn't
Hmm.
actually find that help. I couldn't find help, and
Gotcha.
I then wanted to travel, so I traveled a bit and kind of
Hmm.
learned. And then it wasn't until I came back to the UK, and then I started working, and then I found a pattern of working, starting a job with no problems, no
Right.
issue, getting into a job, and then losing my confidence in the job.
Right.
It was like a fighter knowing how to fight,
Mm.
winning the title, and then when it came to defend the title against a maybe unknown or maybe unranked opponent, you just lose the knowledge
Wow.
of how to fight.
Or maybe even an opponent you've already beaten.
Yeah, an opponent you're a bit so totally weak, totally not sure how to go about work. And I found this was quite a common pattern. And I couldn't understand why. I was like,
Right.
well, I'm starting this, I know it. It's like, what's
Did it
happening?
seem like self-sabotage?
It felt like self-sabotage, but it wasn't. It was like silly things. Like I'll do
Okay.
things one time, like I'll do a certain particular role one time, and then the next week I'll do it something else completely different.
Right.
And I'm like, well, why haven't I done it this way that week, and then
Right.
another way, another week? So then it kind of culminated with me job hopping, changing a lot of jobs, because I found the pattern. I understood what the pattern was. And then the main patterns were, if the job was really stressful, I couldn't take, when I say stressful, it was not people being stressful, but just the job itself, like
Right.
markets, deadlines, meetings, lots
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
stuff at various, and I just couldn't take it. It's like I'd start it perfectly.
Mhm.
During halfway through, give it 6 months, a year, I'd probably be out or probably be doing something
Mm,
else.
okay.
And then it kind of culminated probably about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I like my friend of mine, my best friend, Zoe Parsons. She kind of
Hmm.
we were talking, and she kind of reached out to me because she herself was going through. Um, she was in a domestic violence and abusive relationship, and she
Right.
was talking about therapy, and I'm like, therapy? I'm like, what does that entail? So she actually talked me through what
Hmm.
happens, and how it can work and how it might be able to help you. Because she said, "Oh, you might have PTSD." I'm like, PTSD? I said, I can't
Right.
have PTSD. I said, because I'm fine. But
Yeah.
the main worries were the job, because I was just doing the same
You
cycle.
were throwing yourself into it and then taking yourself out of
Yeah, it would be a throw in, no problem. And then some issues would arise,
it.
and then
Hmm.
I would ruminate on them like heavily. Come home,
Yeah.
actually seeing the mistake I made on a wall, and I was saying, I wish I had two brains where I could actually solve
Mm.
that problem and like be the man. But I actually picturing myself being able to solve the problem, which is like emotional rumination, which is just too much. It's too exhausting.
Right, and we've talked about
Yeah.
how men have a tendency, at least just observationally from both our experiences, we have a tendency to ruminate. Like on
We
a lot
love
of things.
ruminating. We love ruminating because it's the fact of, it's one of the things that make us happy. Why? We think about women, we
Hmm.
think about money, we think
Right,
about making it, we thinking about
and
it would be
fixing it.
nice, yeah, it would be nice for me to be a sports person. I'd love to be that person for the day. And we would ruminate
Right,
about being like, I don't know, LeBron James, Tom Brady,
right.
but like, because
It's
because it's
And
nice.
it can be positive at first. It can first be aspirational, and then sometimes it can turn into a, why am I not this person? You know,
Yeah,
like
why?
I suck. I'm like you, I can't be this person. I'll never be this person. Like it goes there. And actually, I think that brings up something is that, you know, I think that if you want to talk a little bit about your athletic background, because I think a lot of people who've been through these situations, people associate them with being a certain type of guy.
Yeah.
I imagine that if you, I don't know whether this was before or after your athletic career, but I imagine that people do not typically associate these types of experiences with people who are athletes.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing is, what you have to understand is like, so I played sports. So luckily for me, I played football when I was younger. I played soccer for
Mm-hmm.
Tottenham Hotspur. Then
Okay.
I ran track, and then I was at a decent level, like just under national level.
Right.
I actually had a couple of offers to join NIA colleges.
Okay.
Had a couple of offers, and then then I started to play American football.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a call up for the NFL Europe.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it into then Taekwondo after, so I achieved my black belt for Taekwondo.
Right.
But the thing is, all the time I needed these sports or these things to keep my physical presence strong, my physical
Mm.
self. So the mental self was battered. It was
Gotcha.
it was destroyed. But the only thing that gave me kudos, my own like pat on the back for self-esteem, was
Mm-hmm.
to reach these feats of these physical feats. So
Right.
if I ran a fast time or I achieved a black belt or I made the cut for a team, it will be like, yeah, I can do this. And
Right.
then, but the thing is, I still found it hard to apply the physical the physical application into the
Mm-hmm.
mental application, because they're two different types of application, because it's normally the mental controls the physical doesn't control the mental,
Right. And
right?
you know,
So
and in a lot of ways, I think that men sometimes, and this isn't always a bad thing, but to excess, it's a bad thing. I think we associate external achievement and external accomplishment with, you know, external dominance, and then we neglect our own internal mastery of ourselves, you know, in our
exactly.
own minds and our souls and whatever. That whole, I don't know if you're familiar with the poem Invictus, but there's that whole, the idea of the captain of our souls being that,
Yeah,
and sometimes I think we completely forget about that because we're so busy trying to dominate externally.
exactly. And this is why some of our greatest sportsmen behind the scenes are like philanderers, like your Tiger Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of your greatest players have been alcoholics, drug abusers,
Right.
whatever, because the whole physical side and the mental side, there's a strong disconnection because of whatever trauma or whatever um, history they've actually lived, which actually plays heavily on their mind. So the only way
Right.
they can make themselves feel good is to actually go out and do an amazing feat, which on
Right.
one side feels good. It's like having a cake, but half of the cake is cooked and half of it's uncooked.
Right.
So when you bite into it, it's like it's give you a taste of, okay, it's cooked, but then the other side is like you want to spit out, but
Right.
it's that whole mix feeling. So I played all these sports and achieved all these things, but still mentally I was still kind of in
Mm-hmm.
turmoil until I had therapy, and the therapy was like my wake up call for me to. Then I remember when I went to meet the therapist, because I chose someone that dealt with PTSD and childhood trauma and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's one of the most important things that you actually look for when you choose a therapist, that they
Right.
understand where you're coming from. No use going to the first. Don't go for the cheapest one. Don't go for the
Right.
most expensive. Don't go for one that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and take your time in that. It's a selection process. There should be no rush, but don't use money as the motivator to choose someone or not choose someone. You choose someone based on your feeling, how well you actually relate to them and what they know as well. So that's one of the
Right.
things. So she was pretty reasonable. I spent maybe just under £1,000 really for like
Okay.
like 10 sessions, and it was Like
So
it
it's
was like
about 100 pounds a session.
about 120 a session for the
Okay.
effort. But when you think about it, you think this is a lot of money. Like I can actually buy a car. I could actually go on holiday.
Right.
But that's the thing is your mind is intangible. You can't see it. So it
Right.
has value. It has no tangible value because you take it for granted.
Right.
If but the things you have around you are stuff that you can see. You can put value on things like that. You
Right.
can put value on things like computers and laptops and phones and stuff and they have a tangible value. Your mind has no value because you can't see it to most
Well, no
people.
tangible value, you know.
Yeah. So when you look to spend money or spend money on yourself, you're like, well, why? My mind's all right. So
Right.
well, so I spent the money and the the sessions were really good. We did some stuff on EFT. We did some
Mm-hmm.
stuff like childhood stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really weird because whilst I was doing the work and having the sessions, when I got home, it's like somebody took out my voice. Like
Wow.
somebody had switched off my talk. And those people that know me, my friends, they know I love talking. I
Right.
love talking and sharing jokes. But for those weeks of me, those days after I had the therapy, there was no talking. There was
Mm-hmm.
like never wanted to talk to anyone, never wanted to see anyone, because it was my brain actually reconnecting,
Process.
processing all these things. And if you think with those 10 sessions I had, how much stuff was processed. So it's like digging up an old casket. It's like
Right.
there's soil that's hard grained, and there's levels which you think, oh, you know, until you reach the casket to actually to exhume it, to then
Right.
put it in a new place, which the soil is better and the location is better and the headstone and everything. It's that type of process really. And then from there, I started to understand a bit better and feel a bit better. You know, I wasn't those mood swings, like moodiness. Like I'm not a narcissistic person, so you know,
Right.
just had those toxic behaviors like
Mm-hmm.
moodiness, change change of my mind, like one space to another, um, argumentative, very hasty, and I find that now I'm just a normal, regular person now. I don't have those issues talking
Right.
with people, engaging with people. Um, Even now working, like even when somebody sends me a really panicky email,
Mm-hmm.
I used to see as a way of anxiety. Now I see it as they're not actually speaking at me, they're speaking to me. So I
Right. Exactly.
understand the tone of the email and why and how.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you communicate or when you see something and you're in PTSD mode, everything is always about you. It's like, well, you spoke to me this way. And it's no, I'm not speaking to you this way. I just spoke, but you take it on as a personal thing because
Right.
the emotional radar is really high. Like
Well, you're always on guard, you know? You're always on guard for everything, on a high alert.
exactly, and you don't need to. So this is one of the reasons, like, why my life now is a lot more calmer.
Mm-hmm.
And now I help to rehabilitate people
Right.
and, and help coach people in the healing process and like mindfulness, relationship wise, domestic violence wise. And it kind of culminates in how I got to meet you as well from
Right.
Nicole and living well, to now now I enjoy my work now. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like a completely different person now.
That's fantastic. And so, yeah, the way that for those listening, the way that Seth and I met is that um, I got connected with an organization called Living Well that helps people who are in, domestic abuse situations, who have been through trauma, things like that. And, Seth, and they also brought in Seth as well. They primarily work with women, but they had men who were reaching out saying, hey, we're dealing with some of these situations too. So they tapped Seth and I to run a men's group that we run every Friday. And it's open to pretty much people from anywhere, depending on your time zone. But I can link that in the show notes, the Eventbrite link, for those who are interested. Without getting into too many specifics of individual cases, though, for people who have come to the groups, though, what would you say are some of the most common issues that have popped up when we've hosted those groups, Seth, or some of the most interesting ones, maybe?
I think the main interesting one is when you hear men talking about issues that maybe other men might not talk about, and then
Right.
you see their faces go like, oh wow, more the old wow feel, like look, to show that, wow, this person is experiencing the same thing as me. I think us men are connected, the ones who are healthy or trying to look for healthiness within ourselves and within our lives. We are connected but we're very guarded and a bit closed about how we share our information, where women
Right.
really share over a drink. For a man, it's like, I guess from our cultural backgrounds, we're not taught to really share and talk about our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We're just raised to like, be men,
Right.
and kind of don't show fear, don't show hurt, don't show pain, don't show emotion. It's like if you
Right.
look at all your gladiatorial films or most films, a tough guy, hard guy, it's always quite a stereotypical role. You never come across
Right.
a person who is emotionally damaged that's trying to connect themselves emotional, because they still have that tough experience, that
Right.
hard that hard
What's funny is I watched, this is especially true when I see action movies from the like 80s and 90s.
yeah.
Like I look back on those, and the main characters, the protagonists, are they seem like sociopaths. Like
Yeah,
when
they
you watch
almost
them.
do. Yeah, it's like someone like Chuck Norris getting bitten by a snake and he sucks out and go, and it's like, oh, no problem.
Right. Like
But
it's
it's like, and so we're bombarded with that, and we see that on a daily, like on a very regular basis. So as men, we're like, oh, I want to be like that man, or like a
or
Jean-Claude
Bruce
Van Damme,
Willis
or
in
like
Die Hard is like a
yeah.
total sociopath. Like
So we're bombarded as that, and then when they try to actually come from the emotional side, they get it wrong. It's like they might have a child and they're separated from their wife, and they buy a teddy and they say, "Oh, I get it wrong all the time. I'm so
yeah.
sorry." So, and it's always that's the angle that they show. They never actually show very few roles. Maybe someone like Will Smith in what's the film where he lost his wife and he worked for free.
Oh, was that it was either, I think it was either Pursuit of Happiness or Seven
In Pursuit
Pounds.
of Happiness, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a film where it shows a man in emotion. I think that's why it's so well
I Am
received.
Legend too does a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
job of that.
Because it shows men in a way which is not normal, but actually it is normal.
Right.
And I think that's why films like that are so well received, because you see the true emotion of a man in, like, being scared, being afraid, failing,
Talking to
talking,
mannequins because there's no one else left in your society.
well, that, but then talking to your child, like in Pursuit of Happiness, talking to your child, what
Right.
happened to work, and actually being really open and being really, 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 really vulnerable. Then I think that we don't get to see much of that. So as men, we're just bombarded with your die-hards, Born Identities, and your kind of
Right.
films that we just think, okay, we need to be tough, we need to be strong, and then whenever we have a problem, it's like, where can who can I talk to? Because I don't have
Yeah.
anything to actually follow, unless you depending on what type of environment you've been raised in,
Right.
which might promote talking or might promote conversation, then you might
Yeah.
have the opportunity to conversate. But generally, it's a no. It's a
Do you,
it's a no.
do you know what films do a great job of, I think, parodying that trope? I think Tropic Thunder and the other guys do a great job of parodying that trope. I don't know if you're familiar with those movies, but Tropic Thunder has like this guy who wrote a book named Four Leaf Tayback, you know, and they're trying to base a movie off of it. And they're like, did you cry when they blew up your hands, Four Leaf? And he's like, nope. And it's ridiculous. Like they frame it as ridiculous. Like it's like it's so and the other guys, I don't know, are you familiar with that movie?
I think I have. Is it kind of looks like one of the guys look like Paul Hogan? Is that?
It's Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and it's like a parody of a buddy cop movie.
Yes.
And like the two guys, the two guys who look like they're going to be the stars of the movie end up being like total idiots, like Samuel Jackson and The Rock, and they're like these just gratuitous, like the star cops who like they cause mass damage to the city when they're trying to chase like a small time drug dealer, but like they say they get all the glory because of it. Like it's and Mark Wahlberg's this guy who has like all this, he struggles with like his feminine side, and he has like all these quote unquote stereotypically feminine interests, but he claims that the only reason he does them is to make fun of the people who are interested in them, even though he gets really, really good at them. Like it's really interesting.
That's what I'm saying is that's interesting and that's real. I think, but we like to run away from our true feelings, and this is why we have so many films and stuff that actually portray that strong side, because it lets us jump into this person like a Superman or a hero and stuff, because that's what men are always generally being portrayed as, like heroes and strong and not showing the vulnerable side. But what's really out there is we are as vulnerable as women. We have issues as women. We ruminate sometimes even more
Right.
than women as well. And it's like they're the facts. They are. So it's not and it's not something to be ashamed of, because when you really think about it, when you're conceived, it's like you're conceived as generally females, like
Right.
men as females, so you would have a bit of those hormones and those kind of tendencies, and then you go through that process. I call it the Wolverine process, which is
Right.
then you then become men. So so it's like, so there's nothing really different. It's just the fact in terms of the thinking and the emotions and stuff. So it's nothing to really hide, and it's nothing to really be ashamed of.
Right. And I think that with that, I think we are seeing a shift in pop culture, I think a little bit. I think it might be a bit of an overcorrection now, because now I think pop culture is starting to take masculinity's teeth away from itself, which I don't like. I think that that's a negative thing. I think we need to acknowledge that there are certain things that are more masculine and feminine elements. It's just about how we utilize them. I think that, pride and courage are kind of two sides of the same coin, but pride is more based in ego and courage is more based in vulnerability. There's a quote by in Game of Thrones where Ned Stark's young son asks him, how can I be brave if I'm afraid? And Ned Stark says, that's the only time a man can be brave, and that depicts it there. It's that whole idea of that courage is not about being fearless. It's about fighting through your fears, and your anxieties.
But then that's another thing as well. It's like, when you hear that, what do you interpret it as? How do you interpret it as? How can you begin to take on the behaviors needed to be successful in that particular role? And I think this is where it gets really interesting. And I think this is where our support group that we have on a Friday really helps men to cover those boxes, or come from those angles. And I guess how we interact with and kind of host a group as well is we put the participants on the spotlight. We give them, we lay out the tools, and we say, okay, choose your weapon to kind of undertake, and basically by them answering their questions and kind of and them also talking about their experiences, they're actively able to look at themselves and go, hey, I can actually do this myself, or I've got a good way of actually figuring this out.
Right.
I think that's another sign of a good coach, really. A good coach shouldn't always have to tell you. It should be able to. That's the difference sometimes between coaching and mentoring. And I think I
Right.
like to have wear both hats, really, is the
Yeah.
term listening to someone and then asking a question that will make them think and go, I never thought about that. And then they pick up
Right.
that thought for them to go, I think I can do it this way. Because when somebody comes with their own answer, for them to go, I think I can do it this way, that's showing that they're empowering themselves.
Exactly. I've seen you do that many times, and you
Mm,
definitely are pretty adept at it. And
mm, mm.
one of the things that, I think that is an example of that is, when there was actually one that you had another engagement that you had to go to. So I think this was the only one that you weren't there for. But I asked at one point, the group that was there, what do you think masculinity's role today is? Like, what? And people said, I have no idea.
See, and they're the questions that take people away from the whole. It takes them away from the whole. Well, I think I need this. I think I need that, and it gets them focused on what they should be focused on.
Right.
And it's almost pulling them out from their comfort sleepy zone to, wow, that's a great question, and it's like, I need to understand this, and sometimes it's a catalyst from actually asking that question to then someone going to the next stage. It's like, okay, what does masculinity means to me? Okay, for me, it's like showing emotion, vulnerable, being accountable,
Mm-hmm.
loyal, being trustworthy, being attention to detail, focused, being strong, but also being weak. But then all these things. But then because I had my time to actually digest and learn that, I can come out with that. But that actually takes. But the thing is, because I'm in a positive mindset and a positive mind space now, I'm confident with how I am now. So that came to be pretty straightforward. But for someone
Right.
who's trying to find themselves and trying to understand what it means to them, it will be a fact-finding mission for them to say
Absolutely.
why, what, and how, and why, and when, and then they'll start getting more confident
Mm-hmm.
because they know that they have. It's a journey. It's a start of that journey, and then they start picking up bits of information, and then they start engaging with people because then your subconscious mind starts looking and engaging with people who are like you, like-minded,
Right.
and that's how you start growing as a person.
Yeah, and one theme that actually kept popping up seemed to be this theme of utility. Like, it's important for us to be useful, but not forceful about our utility, and also not to be pushovers about our utility. Like, we don't want to be used. Like, it's good to be useful, but we don't want to be used, and we also don't want to force our utility on other people. And that's such a delicate balance to strike. And I think that, I think in the past several decades, femininity has sort of started to find its role and its identity in its way in society. And that's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. But I think as it's done that, masculinity has been sort of losing its sense of identity because for so long it was just, it identified itself as not feminine.
Exactly, but then I see as the two go hand in hand. One person can't. There's a saying in West Indian culture: one hand can't clap. You need two
Right.
hands to clap, and I think there's so much a push for the femininity and stuff to push ahead and forge ahead. It's like, no, it needs to be on the equal footing, but then one set of people needs to understand it needs to be on the equal footing. And yes, and on one side, in terms of women and their rights and stuff, and the whole feminine side, yes, they do need to push forward as well, because there's still some issues where women are still left behind, and it's not a level
Mm-hmm.
playing field. So but then as a man, you need to know where you stand. And I think the best
Right.
way of usually showing how valuable you are is to take yourself out of the equation sometimes.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
reason why is, first of all, you don't have to have the mental antagonization, because you're not thinking, oh, well, this person might need me, they might not, and they're ruminating. When you take yourself out and more extricate yourself, you let the person deal with whatever they're dealing with you not being there.
And you're
Yeah,
asking, what do I need?
exactly. You're asking what you need, but then also, if the person cannot resolve the issue and you come in and you just do one or two things, that shows how valuable you are to yourself
Mm-hmm.
and how valuable they are to you. Now, if they respect you, they'll do it in a more kind of dignified way. The way, if they're starting to kind of come off in a way was to make you feel uncomfortable, then that shows that you're not valued and you're not
Right.
respected. And that's when you take yourself out again. And you make it in a way where if you're respected and you're valued in the right type of way, you put yourself in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you take yourself out of the equation. The reason why I say equations is because I love maths, right?
Right.
The word could mean anything. So I could have x plus x, we will equal x. Now my three x's can be whatever number I want it to be
Mm-hmm.
for my equation to be complete.
Right.
I take myself in the equation, put my numbers in, I'm then affecting the outcome of what that number is. If I
Right.
take myself out of the equation will still work, but x will be an unknown.
Right.
This is how it's a really good way and a healthy way to kind of understand things. And sometimes as well, you don't need to come with the hammer to 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 the to the china shop. You just need to
Right.
and not say anything. What's so what how hard would it be if you don't really have to engage, or really don't have to engage too much in conversation and be more of a listener rather
Right.
than
You know, we should not let our tools become weapons, because tools can very easily become weapons, but weapons just hurt people, and we can hurt ourselves with them. Tools are useful to
yeah.
ourselves or to other people. And if other people decide they don't want to make use of our tools, that's their problem. What were you going to
But
say?
when tools are useful when handled correctly and when in
Exactly.
the right conditions. And that's the thing, is when I use my tools now, I use them in the right conditions, in the right way, because I'm emotionally calmer and I'm calmer about my surroundings. So I don't need to be waving a knife around, because I don't need to, because I'm calm. I use my
Mm-hmm.
knife to cut bread or to cut paper or to whatever.
Right.
I don't need to wave it around because I'm not an emotional person now. So you
Right.
have to you have to understand your tools, and your tools are your hands, your mouth, your eyes, and your brain. How are they engaging? How is it sounding? And also, as well, sometimes we interpret things the wrong way, because we
Mm-hmm.
hear a certain perspective or a certain tone, and we think of it as threatening, or it doesn't matter if it's threatening. Now, if someone comes in your face and kind of
Mm-hmm.
then you know that's seen as a threatening behavior. It's like,
Right.
how do you de-escalate that?
Right.
Do you take yourself out from that? Then I normally have this funny thing. I sometimes do it with my children when they were younger, more so when they have a tantrum. I just film them,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll get more like, why are you
Mm.
filming me for? Because the thing is, nobody wants to be called out for their behavior.
Right.
However, you don't want your behavior to be called out, so you need to take yourself out of that kind of engagement, because
Right.
someone's engaging and talking to you on a completely different level, which isn't helpful to you. It's not helpful to you understanding. It's not helpful to you being resolved. The same
Right.
way you and I are talking, if someone is upset, they can still be upset and still talk in
Exactly.
a way which engagement is clear and it's healthy. So so this is another thing as well, in terms of the whole understanding. If I was an emotional person, I would be like, what do you mean you talking like this, and you always do this, and going
Mm-hmm.
off. Then you raise yourself, they raise, you raise, they raise, you raise more, and then you lash out.
because we're trying to win instead of trying to solve,
Exactly.
and yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention is that so when we see, well, our group, it's for people, it can be for people in domestic abuse situations, people dealing with cyber stalking, or people just in unhealthy and toxic situations in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be severe abuse, or people looking to better themselves. And it can be for romantic relationships, familial relationships. It can be men who are struggling with all different kinds of, just toxic situations or situations that aren't healthy for them. One of the things that, how do you think men find themselves in these situations, if not once, sometimes even over and over again?
It's funny. It can come from many different things. So the main common one is there's cultural pressures
Mm-hmm.
to fit in culturally. The second one is something called parentification, which is
Right.
like, especially in like single parent families where like the mom or the dad will say like, you're the main person now, you are the man or you are the woman of the house. And if you think about it, just picture this: your son or your daughter, your niece and nephew is 10, say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to the store and you buy them clothes, you buy them man clothes,
Right.
and you put them in man clothes. And it looks really silly, right? It looks really weird, right? It looks really stupid. You buy your nephew wears size 7 or size 5.
Mm-hmm.
You buy him size 10. He's a small waist, but you buy him a waist 36. But what
Right.
we do as parents, or what parents do unknowingly, is they say you are the man of the house now. You're the little
Mm-hmm.
man. And basically what that does is put a child in a big person's
Right.
body in terms of thinking. So they go around thinking they're capable of doing these things. Mind you, they're still in school, they're still dealing with the psychosocial challenges that they
Mm-hmm.
go through in life in teen stages and kind of middle school, high school, whatever,
Right.
college. And then they have these set of beliefs or behaviors that are quite maybe underdeveloped, underdeformed. Basically, they're not really aware.
Mm-hmm.
More, they have parents who are extremely strict
Mm-hmm.
and almost like more authoritarian. So the father or the mother is like the head of the household, no talking back, no
Right.
talking. So so these are like the three common ones that I come across, common behaviors where men end up in these situations. Um, and then what they do is like, what you find is most men is they would look for someone, like their mom, like a family
Mm-hmm.
member. And it's normally the toxic one. When you think about it, it's normally the
Right.
toxic one they actually look to find and say, oh yeah, this person's great, I get on well with this person.
Right.
And basically they are manipulated and kind of really antagonized and really, it's
Mm-hmm.
really exhausting for them, because they now
Right.
have to, thinking that they've got peace and tranquility, they now have chaos
Right.
effectively. And they're stuck in this relationship, but they want to try and do right. They want to do better than what their parents did and kind
Mm-hmm.
of enjoy, engage and stuff. And that never happens. That never
Right.
happens. So most of these men just end up staying in these relationships and try and figure it out. And then what happens is they either severely depressed, or they get to a point where they commit suicide because it's so overwhelming, or they just leave.
Do you think that do you think there's also a cultural pressure as well for men at large to because I've noticed this especially with men who are a little bit above my age bracket, men who are in their 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, who just to be with somebody, like they have to be with somebody.
Yeah, of course, there's always that, because you look around and you think there's a saying, everybody for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
somebody for everybody. And you look around and you think this world is like, how many billion people this world has. Like you can't find just one person
Mm-hmm.
you can hook up with and kind of share something with and share a life with. It's like it's to some it's hard and to most it's easy. But then if there's underlying issues about how you are and how you do things, and it's then becomes a real challenge. It would then
Mm-hmm.
become a real challenge, and especially if you're the single one out of your friends as well, and everybody else goes out and kind of does their thing, or you've kind of gone through many like toxic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's settled now, they've been together for like 10, 15 years, and you're
Yeah.
kind of having to now find someone. So you know, there's many different things. But I do think that there is definitely a shift in the fact of people wanting to be someone. And don't forget, we've got social media now, so
Right.
it's easier to reach out to someone who you would never be able to reach out to. Like
Mm-hmm.
look at us. I'm in one country, you're another country. We're having a meeting. It's like
Right.
maybe 10 years ago, probably this would never have happened.
Yeah.
This. I mean, it would happen, but it's quite rare. But now it's quite common now. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is a lot of men, I think due to some of the online stuff, I think a lot of men don't really, in a weird way, they don't know how to, I think in some ways it's made it more difficult for men to learn how to properly interact with women, you know?
yeah, it's so funny you said that. I was looking at a program, a YouTube video, um, and it says, "Men, get your best chat up lines." Like it was a show, right? See, right. So you ready
Right.
by your like, oh man, it's like you know, you have to, you've got to like get yourself ready, get yourself prepared.
Right.
And um, then I listened and I was like, wow, that chat up line was so old, so tired, and it's like
They
because
don't work either. Like, I mean, they work if you do it
no,
ironically, like tongue in
no,
cheek. Like, if you know if they know you're joking when you say it, they work.
right,
But if you sincerely do a chat up line or a pickup line,
yeah.
it just screams insincerity, you know?
Yeah, but then the thing is, it's based on different factors, right? But it's fun to actually see someone like shoot their shot. You know, as
Oh,
it's
it is. No, it is. It definitely is.
but the whole fact of approaching in that way and having those conversations in that way, because I think the art of conversation is slowly dying. We
Oh,
talk,
it is. Absolutely.
talk, but when I say it's a new way now, because the old way was face to face, like pre-pandemic, it was face to face. It was, you know, video calls. I can jump on a plane, I can come see you, we can hang out. But now it's a new way of talking now.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a disconnect from the people who can talk, like people like me and you who
Mm-hmm.
use face-to-face contact, and
Right.
now it slips into a social media aspect that we've brought that and been trained and honed in that particular environment, and now we're bringing it into a social media environment. Now we can
Right.
chat and interact, and for people who haven't had that face-to-face interaction and have anxieties now, they now have to chat in front of a screen effectively
Right.
and not
And you
know how
know,
to, yeah,
no, go ahead.
they will not know how to, the way I call it is schmooze. You have to know how to schmooze.
Yeah.
You have to be loquacious, like with the tongue, and to be able to hold these kind of conversations in person, but also on screen as well, and to have presence. And it's something that also needs to be practiced as well too.
I think that the most positive attention, the almost every shred of attention I've ever gotten of positive attention I've ever gotten from women, whether it be platonic or romantic, whatever it may be, is just, it stems from ingenuity. Always. Like, anytime it feels like you're trying to get something or trying to win something, it doesn't seem like if you are genuinely having fun and not caring so much about the outcome, then
Yeah,
it's not that like it's not about not wanting it, it's about not being desperate, you know,
yeah.
like it.
They should they should see your moves, but not your intentions.
Right, exactly. I mean, you should make your intentions known at some point, but you know, it shouldn't be like,
But your moves should be you should be able to show a move or display a move, and then they're like, I'm comfortable with that move, rather than them seeing the move and then actually having problems with, hey, and actually being able to pick up on the intentions. I think when the intentions is being picked up or or displayed, I
mhm,
think where the issue lies in being almost found out. It's like a woman knows or a person knows that they're being like chatted up. It's like, then for them it's like, this person is trying to chat me up, but rather than it should be like,
right.
this person is trying to engage or to talk to me.
Yeah, this
That
person is fun to talk to. They're fun to be around. They're fun. I like being around them. I want to be around them more. And that's how it starts, you know? And I think people are looking for this. Actually, I actually saw a friend post this on Facebook once. It was like, can someone tell me like what the new formula is to talk to women? And I was like, that's your problem right there. Is like,
there is no
you're
formula.
there's no like magic formula that's like, they're not these magical creatures that there's some magic formula to talk to. You're already approaching it entirely from the wrong perspective. It's just maybe it's because I think that one thing that helps is I worked in a field where it was probably like 80 to 90% women. So I being around women was just normal for me. It wasn't that I was trying to like get with everybody, but
No,
just being
but,
around women is a healthy thing because it
but
doesn't make them seem like these magical unicorns, you know?
that's the thing though. His approach was, what do I need to how do I need to survive in that environment? And it's like he looked at what he needed to be able to be comfortable in that environment, when it's like, what things have I got going for me?
Right.
Should be his question. What things have I got going for me? And it's like, okay, I look okay, I dress okay, I smell okay, I don't have I have a pretty decent job, so I'm okay. It's like, you know, you have to be honest, and it's
Right.
like, you go on those things that you know are working for you. It's like, okay, when you have conversations and kind of thing, it might be you read newspapers, you read books, because 90% of the stuff that you'll talk about is actual and kind of happening now at the moment. So current events and affairs, and kind of like current affairs and things happening in the world today is normally a topic of conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
then that can actually be your catalyst to something a lot more deeper. It doesn't have to be, hey, we saying you're very nice and blah blah blah. It's like, hey, did you know that like the GDP of like the USA is like and it's gone down from like 4%? It's like, that's amazing. That's like $2 trillion. It's like,
Right.
like, wow, that's really interesting. It's like, you start conversation with what you know. My thing was, normally it was normally just a conversation, just a general basic conversation, talk about sports, training, whatever, and then it would go into, well, I like this conversation, let's conversate again, let's
Right.
meet. And then it's like, you have to conversate, you don't have to chat someone up, just conversate. That's
Right.
it.
It's such a different feeling. Like it's such a and I would say that I've had more now on a dating app. It's a little bit different because there is sort of a, well, you know, even that it's not that different because I found that like there's these certain things that like people use these certain lines. I had the most success whenever I'd like just make a joke about something that was in someone's profile, you know, like
The
or
dating sites I kind of stayed away from. I think the fact of, it's like, it's it's like going to a buffet. It's almost like you have one piece of chicken there, or like a few bits of
right.
food, and like you have like 20 hungry people, and they're all going for the few bits of food there, because it's like, you're trying to do your thing, someone else is trying to do their thing, and it's like, the person who you're trying to, like, whose attention you're trying to attract, is their head is turned, and like, it's just really hard. It's like, that yes, if you're confident and your profile looks good and you know you've got all things going, it's like look at me. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
but
it's
but you know there's intangibles that you can actually bring in when you meet someone face to face in terms of
right.
how the rapport and everything comes off first before you say, hey, look at me and look at me in my jacket and look at me in like posing up against a car or just
Yeah,
profile.
I never, it was never like my preferred way of meeting people, but it was my attitude. I don't necessarily go looking for someone. What I do is I call it just creating opportunities, you know, like, because when I start like looking for somebody, like, you know, hunt, that never works, you know, like it doesn't like,
Yeah, it's like they smell the endorphins of you that being the hunter. It's like
right,
this guy, we don't like how this guy is coming off. He needs to go. He needs to go.
right. But
But
if I'm creating opportunities, like I've known people who like they'll be on like 8 dating apps at once. I'm like, you're trying too hard. Like you're like just like try one and see if it works, and if it doesn't, then delete it. You know, and if you and I found that when I had luck on dating apps, it was when I really just did not care that much. Not care at all. Like you have to put effort into it. But when I was like, you know, when I was at the point where I was like, you know, swiping every day, you know, blah blah blah, like, you know, it versus just, and like it became almost an ego thing where it's like, how many can I get, like a numbers thing, like it. But that's the totally wrong approach. You have to focus on, oh, is this an opportunity to connect with someone? If it is, then yes, keep feeding that effort. If it's not, then just don't, like and don't be devastated because like someone, you know, said no to you who you've never met, like who you like, I mean, that's just you'll be fine, like
It's just hard work. It's just making stuff harder when actually you just being able to just talk and look at what your strong points are and actually just be honest, like write a note, like what's your 3 strong points, what's your 3 like positives that you can always use. If someone doesn't like you for your 3 strong points, okay, move on. It's okay, it's fine.
right. And
Yeah, and I think the fear of rejection as well is very thin, because I guess if you're in a club or if you meet someone and they say no, it's like no is like to some people is almost like a swear word, really.
or it's almost, I think to some people they see it as never, and I don't mean like if it's no, you shouldn't take it as like maybe later from the person, but I mean like never as in I'll never meet somebody, like everyone's going to say no to me, which
Yeah,
isn't.
this is the thing. It's like if it's a hot day and someone gave you a hot drink, would you accept it? No. It's not that I would actually, like, maybe another day I might, but not for today. It's like people do have women do have the entitlement to say no, and
Mm-hmm.
and actually you don't have to be persistent with it. It's like no, it's like okay, fine, I still talk to you, and you know, and there's other people to me.
Yeah, and
You know, you don't have to be so fixated with the fact
right,
of winning that particular race or winning that particular battle. You know,
right. And
like,
I've also seen people where they feel, men who feel like they have to say yes, like to things, which is, and I've had friends of mine who, when I'll say no to a situation and they're like, why, what was wrong? I was like, nothing was really wrong, except I just wasn't feeling it, you know, like she was fine, she was nice, but just I didn't feel it. And they're like, what's wrong with you, you're never, and it's like, no, like it's okay, I'm good at, like I don't want to, I want to feel something, you know, like, and it's not all about that, but that's part of it, you know.
exactly, and it's the thing of you should be able to say no and not have to worry about it or not have any repercussions of, like, you should be able to say no and then that's it and not have to revisit. And I think this is another thing as well, I guess, in my own healing process I started to understand and feel comfortable with is like, I guess because I was a kind of a people pleaser, when someone said no, I'm like, oh, are you sure? Like, meaning
Mm-hmm.
not meaning to be forceful, but
Right.
just being in a people pleasing mode to want to help them. But like no is no. It's like if someone says no, no problem. See you later. And then if they come back another day and they say, yes, okay, I want this help, fine, no problem. But then it's up to me to say, well, no, I asked you yesterday and you said, do you want help today? It's like, I don't have time. But there are also ways of actually saying no without saying no. And I think
Right.
that's another skill men can learn as well, is the ones who struggle with saying no in a different way. Like, if you know that you always typically say yes, mess about with it. Mess about with how, because when I first learned to say the word no as after my healing, it was the weirdest thing ever. I felt like a 2-year-old. But you know the 2-year-olds who say no, 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 no.
Right.
I said no to anything. I missed out on so many things in that short
Right.
time because I just like to hear the word no. I'm like, no, thank you. No, thanks. Like, friends will ask me, Seth, are you coming out? No, thank you.
Yeah. And I
But
think
like, but the thing is, they will go, but why? I was like, but I said, no, thank you. No, I shouldn't have to explain. Now, if I want to explain,
right.
I can, but I shouldn't have to explain when questioned, because no
Right.
is a straight no. Like, if there's rapport with best friend, it's like, what? No, I can't do it because I'm not well, or I don't want to go, or it depends what type of relationship you have with that person to know if you want to explain or not. But generally, like, just mess about with the word saying no.
Right. And boundaries are so important. And I think it's okay to push on people's boundaries, but when they set the boundary, you have to respect it. Now, I've had issues before where, because I've had people who they set a very clear boundary and I respect it. And I'm very appreciative of that. I actually thank them for it. I'll be like, thank you for doing that and making this so clear, but there are people who, and this is an issue that I have where sometimes I put all my eggs in one basket. I think some men have the issue where they're afraid of it's like a fear of missing out, so they put their eggs in a bunch of baskets. I kind of overcommit sometimes to situations that might not work out for me, partially because I'm not super afraid of getting hurt anymore, but it's not necessarily the most healthy thing to do. But anyway, when a lot of times I do that, I get lost in the past, I've gotten lost in these situations where someone doesn't set a clear boundary. They keep kind of wiggling their boundary. And, I've struggled with that. And that's not a healthy foundation for anything, it isn't. So just because they think they keep coming back, or they might, it doesn't mean that you should,
And that's the thing as well, is like, if you're a man, you have to think, your happiness in your relationship comes from you.
Right.
This is what we sometimes do as men. We put these heavy, unrealistic expectations on our partners because of how they look and how they are, that they will make us happy. No.
Right.
Nothing can make you happy more than yourself. If
right.
you're not happy within yourself, nothing would make you happy. It's like saying, I'm going to give you a bag of money, like 20 million is not going to make you happy. It's the fact of you knowing, so you feel good about yourself, and also having the 20 million is going to make you happy. But everything will come from you first. Nothing tangible makes anybody happy.
Right.
Intangible makes you happy. The power of self. Happy. I think this is another thing as well, is we put a lot of like, the thing is, like, I'm in a new relationship now, and it's like, I don't mind if my partner wants to leave me or they want to stay. It's like I know me, so I know that I'm happy within myself. I'm confident. I can work. Yes, I'm going to be upset by it, but I know I have these 3 or 4 things, these positive things going for me. Now, if I lived for my partner exclusively, that's another story now, because there's a whole lot of attachments. You're unsure, you think you're never going to meet another person again. You put in all your hopes and dreams into someone.
Right. And that's a lot of pressure, and that sometimes makes them run away.
Huge, huge, because that's the thing, is the fact of people pick up on people's behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become too much like that, too emotionally connected, it's like I can move closer or further away depending on how I need to the
Right.
relationship to go. So if I need a day out or day off or whatever, I can take myself away. I can extricate myself from the relationship. I don't need to be around. But if I need to be close and need to be there, then I'm there. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like if I'm always there and always under the thing, and also kind of feeding into the emotional neediness of always being wanted, it's like no, it promotes something far more toxic.
Right. I think that one thing that men struggle with now that I'd like to touch on in when it comes to dating or relationships or whatever it may be, and even sometimes in familial relationships and platonic relationships, is the concept of assertiveness, finding that balance between, our testosteronal aggression and completely doing away with that to the point where we're passive pushovers. And because that's something that that was a tough balance for me to strike for a while. And I think some men think that in our present cultural climate, we're supposed to be pushovers. Like we're supposed to just, be the quote unquote nice guy, where it's like, we basically, we just have no spine. We do whatever the woman tells us to do. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's like, I'm the boss, I'm the man, like all this stuff. And we don't find that balance between that and being assertive. I describe being assertive as being upfront without being an asshole, and
Exactly. Yeah. No, that makes good sense. I guess another way to actually look at it is, I guess it's always good at looking at the hierarchical structure within nature programs. Like when you look at
mm-hmm.
nature programs, you look at lions, monkeys, kind of those type of animals. They're a hierarchical structure, but the male is dominant, but he
Right,
doesn't need to show his dominant only when pressed. More,
right,
he doesn't kind of go around like um, 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 like choking his wife or kind of like giving her a
right,
slap or something. If there's a line that's crossed, he will show his teeth. And
mm-hmm.
the wife and the female or the woman would be like, okay, submissive, okay, we don't need to go there. It's like
Mm-hmm.
fine. But then that's the thing, is in terms of being, we're trying to de-escalate these rising situations. But how do you de-escalate something without, it's like being a bomb disposal expert. It's
Right,
like, you have to be able to select the right wires that will diffuse the bomb. You don't want this thing to blow up, and you
right.
have to use mental acumen
And
and
sometimes we're the bomb.
we are, because the thing is, what we do, we take it to levels, and we say that our partners take it to levels, but I guess our partners are actually reflecting us because of what we give off. Now, if I'm talking and my partner is actually shouting, I just take myself out from
Right.
the the thing, and it's like I say, look, you're shouting at me. I can't really have this conversation now. I think we need to come back when you're less shouty, or and if they demand the fact of, well, you need to stay there, you need to listen. It's like, no, I don't have to listen,
Not
because
unless you change how you're talking to me,
exactly, to change, because it's not good for me and it's not good for you. If you want to raise your voice and stuff and talk, we can put you on TikTok, we can put you
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. You have many outlets to vent,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole way of actually resolving comes from solutionizing, is sitting down, pen and paper, and dialogue, and excessive dialogue at times, where it could be 2-3 hours. You talk about something and put aside emotion and use facts. And I think this is where people come in. They put in the emotion, because emotion is something you can't see. It's like, I can't feel your emotion. I can't see your
Right.
emotion. How can you convey emotion to me when it's something I can't lift, I can't see, I
Right.
can't even feel. I can only maybe imagine what you're going
Right.
through. It's like someone who's lost someone. Oh, I can only imagine your pain. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, that's the only thing I can do. But if you come with the facts now and come from a factual position, then you have a better way of actually resolving the issue and talking about it much better.
Right. And there was I was in a situation in a relationship where we had just gotten past the honeymoon period and we were going through a bit of a rough patch that we ended up getting through, luckily, because it was a healthy relationship. But there was a point where we were having an argument and she said something to me where I was like, wow, that really hurt. That I felt that was really disrespectful. And if we can't talk about issues like this, maybe this isn't the right situation for us. And luckily, she was a healthy partner, and she said, "I didn't realize how that made you feel. I'm so sorry. And she apologized, and we talked it out. Because that's how a healthy partner would handle that sort of thing. Because I communicated it in a way where I wasn't like, oh, I must be so terrible that you would say those things to me. I don't deserve you. Like, that's not the right way to handle it. But it's also not the right way to be like, how dare you say that? And lash out with some kind of like horrible term, like you bitch or something like that. But
Yeah.
and and that leads to a healthy conversation. Now, an unhealthy partner would have handled it in a way where it was like they would have either lashed out at me or they would have turned it on them about how terrible they are and how they're always the victim and all this stuff, instead of allowing me to set that boundary and respecting that boundary.
And that's the thing as well. You also have to look at if somebody does that, you also have to look at how consistent do they always do that when it comes
Right.
to, if it's always consistent, then it's a problem that you need to address either face to face or in a way that they can understand. Because if they're a healthy person and they know that they have I wouldn't say toxic behaviors, but negative behaviors.
Right.
Something that needs to be called out for resolution, not to
Mm-hmm.
make people feel bad about themselves.
Right.
And but then it also comes from calmness. I'm sure a person would be more willing to listen to me if I'm talking to them calmly
Mm-hmm.
rather than me shouting. A person is going to listen to me because when someone's shouting, there's certain parts of your brain that actually shut down to hear shouting. It
Right.
doesn't engage that part of your brain needed for thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure in those times you can always be thinking under pressure, and that's just something that we as men can also develop. And
Right.
and it's a skill. It's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's a skill, and one of the things that I've learned now to do from therapy and coaching and understanding is to kind of harness that now, where I don't even mind. Like,
Right.
people say stuff and it's like I look at the behavior and then it's up to me whether I respond or not respond. And this is another thing as well. You don't have to respond to everything.
Right. You don't. If it becomes a real issue, then it becomes worthy of a response.
Exactly. I don't. There's things that like friends or like close people say to me that I look at. Even when people phone me on my phone, if I want to talk, I talk.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to talk, I don't talk. I don't need to be responding,
Right.
because it's an emotional thing, responding, and like
Right.
someone a quick validation. It's an emotional thing, and this is also something that needs to be worked on. You can still respond in your time when you're calm. Yes, if it's your spouse or your partner, give me 20 minutes, give me an hour, or I talk to you later, it's fine. But this whole thing of it's a mindset change, and I think this is what people need to be aware of. Change the mindset, and you change the person.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this mindset of like, oh, I told her, or, oh, I told him, like that, like I got him or I got her, but you're not trying to get him. You're trying to solve the problem, And if someone's trying to get you, and if you're on the receiving end of that all the time, and they're not trying to solve the problem with you, you might need to rethink your situation.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why. But in terms of my coaching now, I'm really enjoying it now. So now, for the past 2 years, I've kind of linked up with Zoe Parsons, and
Right.
she started Self Love After Abuse, and basically it's a Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
We've got probably about 10,000 members, and then we also got our own
Wow.
website as well, selfloveafterabuse.com. And basically Zoe and myself, we provide life coaching,
Mm-hmm.
men and women in domestic violence. We provide like training them on like narcissistic abuse, red flags, and the whole mindfulness journey from actually being in a relationship to
Right.
actually getting out from a relationship and being in a healthy mind space, really, because
Right.
it's quite a journey, and there's loads of kind of small things that's connected with that. There is no straight be with someone toxic and then leave and then that's it. There's
Right.
trauma bonds, there's understanding like codependency, there's dealing with like someone who's narcissistic or toxic or negative, and
Mm-hmm.
with your own anxiety, because if you think being with someone like that, you've told you know you're ugly, you're horrible, you're no good,
Mm-hmm.
if you're told this every single day for an amount of years, you know, it wears on your confidence. You don't feel good, you don't feel positive, you don't feel happy. There's PTSD as well. There's many different things that, you know, by being with someone like that, someone needs support to um, actually come out the other side. So you know, so Zoe and I, we both provide that service now, and yeah, it's really good. It's really nice. I get to meet cool people, fun people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a way of actually paying back into. Um, when I look back at my relationships, like the ones that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't well, it's like maybe if I was fixed or had support, I would have been able to approach them better,
Right.
better way. I would be able to handle them. I would be able to identify red flags. I would be able to identify negative people. I would be able to stop myself from making those types of mistakes, which were emotional mistakes, not mental mistakes. Like,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Seth. You know, and if people want to find you directly, where are some places they can find you? You
Um,
mentioned a few, but are there any other places as well?
yeah, you'll find me on Instagram, Seth Katz TLC. You find me on Facebook, Seth Katz. If you want to send me the email, sethkatztlc@gmail.com. Just type in Seth Katz on any one of those platforms and you will find me.
All right. And that's Katz.
Katz, yeah,
Yeah.
Seth Katz.
All right. Thanks, Seth. It was great talking to you as always.
Man. Thank you so much for your time, man. Thanks a
No
lot.
problem. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Okay.